Welcome back, everybody. Derek and Greg, Friggen Good Politics. Yet another episode. I think this is episode 17.
We're getting there. We're getting to the 20 mark, Greg. I'm excited.
That was our goal for the year. So if we
Yeah.
hit it, then we did it.
The year's only half done. So we're doing good.
Yeah. I'm proud of us.
I'm so proud of us too. Proud of our loyal listeners here too.
Yes, you guys as well. Thank you for coming back every 2 weeks. Sometimes even sooner when we feel like throwing another episode out. So, and speaking of episodes, today our episode, keeping coalitions together. We've got a few things to go through. We've got Mark Carney and his coalition, Danielle Smith and her coalition, and then the Middle East and that whole coalition of stuff going on.
That's a
So the
mess.
first one
Messy
it's a
one.
mess, yeah.
Can I start with why I think we should talk about this? So,
Yes,
um,
Derek, you give us the play.
right after university, I was really interested in politics in university. But then after I started reading a bunch of books on this, but the theory is that politics is all about building winning coalitions. And it makes sense. You have to collect a lot of different people in order to get enough to win a government. And this is where some people get very upset because it's like, why are you acting like this government? Why aren't you just caring about my left-wing views or my right-wing views? It's because they're trying to build a winning coalition and you need multiple
Yes.
people. That's where they usually talk about you need a big tent. And so we were going to go through sort of some theory on this just to kind of help. And then we're going to use real case studies happening right now to sort of
Yes.
emphasize these coalitions. So if I could share my screen, Greg,
Yeah, you
and
should be
show
able to.
I can,
There we
and
go.
the audio people can't see this, but I'll explain it the best I can here. So this is some abacus data showing basically the political makeup of Canadians. And this would be fairly similar in other countries, I think, as well. But on the so but how you can see this is it's not a typical line chart showing the political spectrum. It's a box, but it's showing what boxes people are into. So in the far left bottom corner, you basically have the most left wing people in our country, and so those are considered economic. No, would that be the top one? The top one is
Yeah,
the
sorry.
most.
The top left are the
Yeah,
most economic conservative, or the most, sorry, oh my gosh, the most left-wing people in the country.
correct. Okay, so on the top left, it's in yellow. Again, audio, you can't see this, but about 24% of Canadians are very left wing. They are economic and cultural progressives. So they are essentially socialists, right? They believe in high government spending. They're probably environmental activists would be in there. Some people that want to shut down modern agriculture, oil and gas needs to die, like all that sort of stuff. There's 24% of the country is that. So that's significant. Now
That's a
on the
sizable coalition in and of itself right there.
it is, and it's kind of what the NDP has harnessed for a long time. Other than right now, they're very down on their luck,
Yeah.
as we all
Yeah.
saw in the last election. And then you kind of have the almost middle of the road progressives. You could say they're economic conservatives and they're cultural progressives. So those are people that they understand. Like people would call these like a red Tory, I think, and they're actually in red on this, and that's
Yeah.
6%. So they believe in some good fiscal policy, but they also like government spending. They like a big government telling you what to do. And so it's like we got to make some money here. Like a lot of these people are very business minded, I would say, but they like using the money to do lots of good social programs with them. So they're
Yeah.
big universal healthcare supporters and big like dental care people, and free everything from the government, which is not free as we know. In the middle, you kind of have 32% of Canadians that they're a mix. They're basically mixed on the economic conservatism or the progressive conservatism and the cultural mix. They're basically your swing voters, right? Is what you would
Yeah.
say. And so they're depending on issues and what's going on, they're probably not super active. They're sometimes easy to reach, sometimes really hard for either a left wing party or right wing party. And so they're an interesting bunch, right? And that's 32%, which I think is probably fairly accurate. And then on the right side of the spectrum, you have the economic progressives and the cultural conservatives. So I would say this is somebody that's, probably has some religious background. So they're
Yeah.
culturally, they want to see our country be more traditional, but they also don't mind social programs and some government spending and that type of thing. So they like the tax brackets where it's the rich pay a lot, and so that's why you see the liberals trying to access these people sometimes, but they have a hard time overcoming it because of the cultural conservative side of it. And then you have And so that's 21% of the populace, and then 17% of the populace is you're pretty staunch conservative, economic cultural conservative.
Yeah.
So they want traditional family values, traditional values that again, this is I'm probably in between the economic and cultural conservative and the progressive and cultural conservative, sort of
Same. Yeah.
in the middle there somewhere. So it's like I'm not like I like social programs in key situations. Like we need strong government in lots of ways, and then I also think it's dumb sometimes, depending on
Yeah.
the issue.
Yeah,
And and
we're
I
not ideologically like it has to be government every time or it has to be free market every
correct.
time. Like we're allowed to have a bit of both.
Totally, totally. So I'll just give you an example of where I'm at on this. So I'm from Saskatchewan, as people know, but I like government insurance. There's a crown corporation in Saskatchewan called SGI, and it leads to very good insurance rates for people on their homes and automobiles. And SGI doesn't treat everybody fairly, but overall pretty good. And when I moved to Alberta, I was like sort of shocked by like the crazy nature of the insurance business here.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll take the Crown Corp in this situation. But I usually it's like in my brain, it's like I kind of hate Crown Corps typically. I'm like, there's too many of them. And I don't like this whole nationalizing of industries and buying pipelines. That's crazy talk. So this is the coalitions that you're trying to create. So the conservatives, in the last election, they got what, 42%,
40,
41%,
yeah,
something?
41 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
the liberals got like 43 and a half, basically.
yeah. So you could see, and the NDP, their vote basically collapsed. And
Yeah.
so what the conservatives did is they collected all the right wing people, I think. So
Pretty well.
they pretty well, and then they got a little bit of the middle. And the liberals, they basically sucked up all those cultural progressives and economic conservatives pretty easily because Mark Carney's a
Yeah.
business guy, which would typically actually go a lot of times to the conservatives, but I don't think it did this time. But they
No.
sucked up like all this the 24% of the NDP
Oh
vote,
my gosh, yeah.
and so the NDP collapsed, and they got a lot of middle road Canadians, especially the older ones too, and they built a winning coalition.
Yeah.
Now the trick is you can build a winning coalition for an election. Can you keep the thing together?
Yes.
That's that's where leadership comes in. That's where we'll talk about as we get into our play. So is anything I missed there, Greg, or is that a pretty good explanation of where everybody's at?
No, I think you covered it fairly well. I mean, a lot of people are used to the standard political spectrum where it's like a grid like this, where you've got like I'm in mirrored, so maybe it'll be backwards, but you've got one quadrant, far left, soft left, far right, soft right.
Yeah.
This is a little bit like that, but it's because it's uniquely Canadian. It's not. It doesn't quite fit into that same box. Um, we have the red Tory tradition. Now, red Tory used to mean something different. It used to mean more actually conservative than not.
Yeah.
But we have that sort of high Tory tradition that makes our conservatives different from American conservatives. Makes us more like almost like Europeans, which will come up.
Hmm.
We'll circle back to the European discussion soon.
Yeah.
And then left wing Canadians actually used to be very different. They used to be like farmers and
Right.
small business owners who wanted to
Unions.
work together to unions to protect themselves against big interests
Yeah.
and so those things have realigned over the years obviously, but it's interesting how in the last election we actually saw a lot of those top right in the purple quadrant, the economic progressives and cultural conservatives, a lot of those people actually went conservative
Yeah.
because they
You're
want
right.
that more like those things that Pierre was talking about, smaller government, but more freedom for family, but maintaining those like workers' rights,
Hmm.
giving more back to workers and small businesses and tax breaks for those people, that kind of thing. So the coalitions regularly realign, but this is about where they sit right now.
Yeah. You saw that with Doug Ford getting a lot of union support in
Yeah,
his last election, and Pierre actually getting a lot of union support in his last election too,
yeah,
which is rare for conservatives. But it's
very
because the
rare.
Liberal
Yeah,
Party has gone so far left, and the NDP sort
yeah,
of collapsed, and they don't know what coalition to build. I don't think. Like they're trying to build this economic and cultural progressive crew, but they're struggling with that because the Liberals have gone so far left, and so they don't
yes,
know where to go at this point. I think it's
yeah,
also a slight problem for Pierre too because he has to keep this coalition alive on the right, but he has to access some of those people in the middle. And it's hard to do that, right? It's not easy. Now again, more abacus data. A lot of people are decrying that Pierre's done for. He's
According to
but
Nanos, if you were to just look at Nanos, yeah.
yeah. But Abacus, who's a more reliable pollster, I think, on these things, says like it's kind of still the same from the last election.
Yeah, it's
And
basically unchanged.
yeah, so it's like Pierre's coalition seems to be holding. And again, it's probably not a great time to poll on this anyways because people are disengaged in the summertime. If you're
Yeah.
listening to this, you are hardcore. Like you care about this
Yeah.
country because you're one of the informed hardcore people listening to Greg and I talk about
Yeah.
political coalitions and
Everyone's
why
gonna,
they're
you're the guy that on the vacation, everyone asks, what's up? Like, what's
yeah
going on with
yeah
this and that? Like, and you're the
yeah what's
guy or
going
the
on
gal, sorry, or gal,
yeah
to give
exactly
that, to give all the tea. Yeah. And one more thing I did want to note, Derek, on this is like, there's been a big push in the media and in the sort of Laurentian elite space, to say that like culture conservatism is dead in Canada. There's no,
no it's
everyone's a
not
progressive, everyone's more left wing. And if you look at this data blows that narrative out of the water.
yeah
Cultural
yep
conservatives, if you take both category of cultural conservative, that's 38%. That's nearly what Pierre has current vote share.
hmm
If you look at this Abacus data polling. So the idea that cultural conservatism is dead is complete, and I think this is completely also related to the complete changeover we've seen in the demographics in the last election, where we saw
hmm
places in Toronto going more blue, Windsor going more blue, and then places in like in Calgary or whatever. They didn't, not, most of Calgary still went blue, but it was a lot closer than it has been in recent
yeah
elections, where you've got some realignment going on there with the various demographics. Whereas a lot of new Canadians are very culturally conservative, and there's a
Mhm.
huge there's a chance, or an opportunity, I should say, for the Conservative Party to lean into that more cultural conservatism that usually everyone tells them, no, no, you've got to go for the economic conservative and the cultural progressive, except those people are only 6%.
Yeah.
So anyway, an interesting frame there.
Yeah. Well, and some of the like again, it's sort of the mixed bag of 32% of
There's
Canadians.
also a mix, yeah.
I think this 32% could be convinced to go either way, to be honest, depending
Yes,
on how
absolutely.
good the leader is and how their policies will respond to them. So, yeah, it depends. But I think you're right, Greg. Like I think the Laurentian elite hate the cultural conservative thing. They most of them are progressive. They're from universities and they hate religion. They hate traditional values. I don't know why. Like I think there's
That's a whole
something in
other podcast.
that's a whole nother podcast about how academics hate traditional values. But yeah, I think good leaders can sell this. But it takes a lot to sell it to people because
Yes.
the entrenched interests in academia and media don't like it. So you have to be really strong because you get big pushback on it. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that's the mix there. We should go into the plays of the week and we'll talk about all of this during the plays of the week.
Yes.
How smart is
Yeah,
this
so
that
let's I give all credit to you, Derek. It was your idea. I can't I put the pieces together, but you cooked the cake, man. You cooked.
we're co-cooking here, Greg. We're good. We're doing good.
All right. All right, play number one. Let's talk about Mark Carney. His coalition, and he's well, right now Mark Carney's in Europe, and he
Yeah.
used a phrase. Derek, do you want to tell us about the phrase that he used that might
Oh,
set some hair on
yes.
fire?
So I was on Twitter or X yesterday and I saw a trending thing in Canada that said New World Order. I was like, what? So of course I'm going to click on that. I love a good conspiracy more as much as anybody.
NWO.
And so I look and Carney, yeah. I'll play the clip for you here because I think it's just good. Let me find it. All right, here you go. And I have to make sure the sound is sharing. Okay. So give me a second here, folks.
We're meeting now in that context in, as you just said, in
This is
hard
him in
times.
Europe.
We might say even a hinge moment of history, a world that's
moment.
more dangerous and divided, a time where the rules-based international, the global order, rules-based global order is under
Global
threat
order.
at a time when technological change is accelerating. And we really have two choices as a jurisdiction, as a country in this circumstance. We can nostalgically look back and long for the old order to somehow return, or we can build a new one with purpose and partnership.
Okay, so there you go. he is talking about a old world order versus a new world order, which
Yes.
there's two parts of my brain that go here. One is the conspiracy one, which if
Yes.
you have learned about the Leap Manifesto and all the left-wing ideology stuff that's out there, they really do want a new world order where it's the World Economic Forum where it's like you'll own nothing and be happy and we're just gonna all have farms in our backyards and you
Yeah.
won't travel anymore and modern agriculture goes away and modern energy goes away and you just like you stay in your small part of your city and everything's self-sustaining and it's all for the environmental good and all that sort of thing.
Yeah,
That's what
which is just to make a point real quick, Derek. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, it's communism, it's socialism." It's actually it's not quite.
no, it's
It's
different. I
it's
agree.
it's called servile statism, where you've got the elite class, like your Mark Carneys, like all your Davos types at the top, and then everybody else at the bottom. And all of us work
Right.
like menial labor at your Amazon factory while the robots take all your jobs. So that
Yeah.
and it's a way for the top people at the top to stay at the top and the people at the bottom to stay at the bottom. And it's actually I know that it does there's sort of a bit of come on guys, Alex Jones, kind of thing about it. But there
Yeah.
is there there's there these things are real. The Leap Manifesto is
It
real.
is. It's totally
Um
real.
and I mean it's something like left wing and right wing people can get along with, we don't want all these super powerful people at the top. We want people at the bottom to have their say economically and politically. So it's actually something we can all speaking of coalitions, we can all agree on tentatively.
Hmm. It is like you're right. It's real. Like left wing people talk about this all the time. The World Economic Forum talks about it all the time, and
Yeah.
it's like so. It's when they go to these rooms and they're like, "We're the smartest people in the world. We should tell everybody what to do." And this is it's all about it's all wrapped around the climate change argument and figuring
Generally,
that
yeah.
out. Now, I don't know if like so my other side of my brain is I think Carney just wasn't thinking about all this. Like he hasn't been in politics long enough. I feel like this was probably more of a mistake than him trying to project this new world order. I think he was like, I just signed this deal with the EU. Canada and EU has signed a trade deal, whatever. So that's fine. Because Carney loves Europe.
Yes.
All these European leaders, they're his best friends, friends forever. With all these European, like he can't
BFF.
stop. As soon as he became PM, he went to Europe and like hung out with all the people there and was talking and doing diplomacy. And
Yeah.
now he's signing trade deals, which a lot of people criticize in the business community here that I've talked to. They're like, okay,
Oh,
Europe's
really?
great, but none of them are growing. They're all like sort of stagnant economies and
Well,
not the
some of
most
them are
powerful.
growing. Do you want to guess which countries are growing or which kinds of governments the countries are growing have?
Please tell me.
Conservative ones like
Oh,
Poland. Poland's GDP is going to be higher
really?
than the UK's very
Holy
soon,
cow.
if it isn't
I didn't know
already,
that.
and they've been like a post-communist state for the longest time, but
No, I didn't know
they're
that.
deregulating their economy, they're growing. Countries like that are doing just fine,
Hmm.
whereas nations like the UK, which even under nominally conservative governments have
Yeah.
started to stagnate. Things like
Kind of like
like they've suffered, like we have too much immigration, things like that.
kind of like our country. Yeah. It
Yeah,
sounds like
yeah.
Canada. Yeah, so it's again like people sort of have to look at where the world is really going and like where the wealth is being created. So like we sort of forget about India. It's like a lot of people
Yeah.
were hoping that the Carney government would reestablish better relations with India. Actually, my former boss, Brad Wall, has been
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
because I
yeah.
got to bring him up every episode. But it's
Every
like
episode, yeah.
I think Scott, Premier Mo, and Premier Smith all said he should be ambassador to India because he spent a lot of time there. I don't think he wants to do that. Maybe
Yeah.
he does. I don't know. I doubt it. He loves his ranch
He loves that
in
ranch,
Cypress
man.
Hills there. So I don't know. I think that would take him away from the ranch too much going to India constantly. But he'd be great at it for sure. And it's very important. Like so, like all those Asian countries, they're all growing
Yeah.
massively. Indonesia, but like there's a pile of them there that are their populations are growing, their middle class is growing, and we should be trading with them way more. So again, like Europe,
Yeah.
not bad, but it's like it just feels like Carney is Mr. Europe, and there's this whole other world out there. Now, obviously China's there too, but there's
China.
Yeah, China. Japan is actually, seems like it's rising up a little bit too, and more people are starting to talk about.
Despite their population about to implode, yeah, they're doing not bad.
Yeah,
Just
so
because
I
they
don't know
make
if they're
so
gonna.
many good things.
Yeah, they're actually the one that like needs immigration,
Yeah.
but they don't like that. So, anyways, we're not talking about Japan. But yeah, so interesting that he did that, and again, if I'm being skeptical and conspiracy theorist, I would say maybe it's a bit of a dog whistle to his base of far lefties, that this Leap Manifesto thing that you've been talking about. A lot of people forget that a bunch of the NDP MPs at the time of this Leap Manifesto that came up, look it up, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Again, establishing the New World Order, they signed on to this thing saying, we need to do this for sure. And so maybe it's a bit of a dog whistle there. Who knows what his intentions are? Again, I think it was more of a mistake than intentional, but you never know. Maybe he is operating on that chess level where he's thinking a bunch of moves ahead. That's how
I
you do
mean,
it.
there's
That's how you
also
keep.
the chance that it because if we're going to talk about coalitions now, like Carney's in the midst of trying to keep this coalition alive. This coalition is full of people from like business liberals all the way over to like far left, because
Yeah.
that's who he's pulled from.
Yes.
So he's and we've seen that with his like talk of pipelines. We're gonna build to keep like the sort of business liberal people happy,
Right.
but we're not gonna actually get rid of any of the laws that stop us from building. We're gonna do C5 to try and get around it. But then there's other people who are mad at Bill C5 because it's an intrude. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there about privacy and intrusion and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and search and seizure stuff, and we're starting to see a few cracks form here and there. And even with this latest European thing, I saw obviously there was some conservatives online upset about it, saying no, we're not European, we're our own thing. But I also saw some left wing people being like, what the heck? Like we're not a bunch of colonialist nations. Where Canada's its own thing. And then we also saw with NES, Nader Smith, he was upset about Bill C5.
Let's play that.
Let's play that clip because this was very interesting. Like there's a lot of subtext and
Yeah.
or not subtext. There's a lot of you need to understand a few things going into this. So Nader Smith, quite a popular MP for the Liberals in Toronto, had thought about resigning. Carney asked him to stay and become housing minister, so he agreed. Then they had the election, and oh my gosh, NES was taken out of housing and just he's no longer a cabinet minister at all.
Dropped.
Um, and
Dropped.
and he posted and he was quite upset about it. He said he was offended and he thought it was a slap in the face, but he's obviously still committed to the party. But then he went and made this video. Now it's 4 minutes long, so we might not listen to the
Yeah.
whole
No,
thing.
we'll listen to
But
like
he
a
goes
minute.
on, yeah, but he goes on a bit of a rant about Bill C5, his own government's bill, and how he's not happy with it.
Let's listen.
Consider the case of two Bill 5s, Doug Ford's Bill 5 and the federal government's Bill C5. Ontario's Bill 5 became law last week. It gutted habitat protection just to start, but it also enacted the Special Economic Zones Act to give the government unnecessarily and disproportionately unchecked power. Effectively, the government can now designate special economic zones and then exempt or alter any provincial or municipal law that would apply to a company or project within those zones. Eco-Justice rightly called it a threat to democracy. Worse. The Ford government shut down democratic debate, curtailed committee scrutiny, and jammed the bill through the legislature. Now, okay, par for the course for Doug Ford, maybe.
Criticizing
Fair.
Ford.
But Eco-Justice has also called the federal government's Bill C5 a threat to democracy.
His own government.
And no liberal government should welcome that accusation. Worse, in Bill C5 and Bill 5 deja vu, this federal government is proposing to shut down democratic debate, curtail committee scrutiny, and jam the bill through the legislature. It would all actually make Harper blush. Liberals would rightly
Gotta get that
scream.
Harper
We would
jab in there.
scream if a federal conservative government attempted the same. Now, okay, fairly.
All right. So that's probably good.
You can actually hear a few of his like own people like barking in the background a little
Yeah.
bit there as we shut the clip down.
Shut up, Nate. We're trying to keep our coalition together. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. And so
yeah.
there's been some speculation that we've talked about this off the call off the episode that so no one wants to be NDP leader right now. You can go on Wikipedia and see the giant list of people who've all said thanks but no thanks to being NDP leader.
Jagman,
But
you
some
get it
people
for
have,
life. Nobody
yeah,
wants
you're
it.
just yeah. If you want to come back. And so there was some not this isn't like any kind of rumor. It's pure wild speculation that NES, Nate Erskine Smith, could cross the floor to join the NDP and become their new leader. Because
That'd be
he
juicy.
did actually at one point he ran for while he was still a federal MP, not that long ago, like a year ago or whatever it was, ran to be the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. Now he lost out to Bonnie Crombie for a bunch of reasons that I won't go into. But he's got a bit of that like cult popularity within left-wing Canada, and he's respected by quite a few people on the right for his consistency, as we saw in this video.
He's a pretty good speaker.
And he's a very good speaker. And he's a
Good
young guy, a
orator.
lot of charisma, all that stuff, a lot of riz, as the kids say.
Kids do
So
say that.
there's
Yeah.
a chance, there's a chance that that might happen. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But evidence that we're starting to see some of these cracks in the coalition,
Hmm.
which I thought were going to happen.
For sure.
I wondered if they would happen a bit quicker, but I didn't really calculate in the fact that we're heading into summer and people just unplug for summer. It's just what happens.
For sure.
But we'll see what happens. Like even in that most recent Abacus data poll, we're starting to see the veneer come off the Carney coalition a bit. Like his approval's down, his disapproval's up, both on the government and on his personal side. So we'll see. I mean, it's not a ton.
It's
It's
not a lot, Greg.
pretty
He's still
significant,
doing pretty good. He's still
but any
honeymooning.
oh, he's still honeymooning, absolutely. And so and conservatives shouldn't just assume that like by sitting back and watching that the wheels will come off. Like they've still got work to do if
Hmm.
they want to come back and beat him. But I think they're also kind of waiting on the NDP to pick their new leader so they can reform their coalition because theirs
Yeah,
completely died off.
it sure did. Yeah, that would be interesting if he made that switch. And so this is so opposite to what Trudeau did. So Trudeau did everything
Yes.
for guys like Nate here and got them all excited for the left-wing environmentalism and just kind of destroyed the economy in the process. Now, Carney, who's a business guy who's made a lot of money in his life, is like, wow, our economy is really bad. We need to build things, and the threat of the US is a good excuse to do it. And so he's going to have a hard time keeping those folks in check. Now, Trudeau
Yeah.
was able to keep the more fiscally conservative people in check somehow. I don't know how he did that. I think the issue is fiscally conservative people in the Liberal Party are not as vocal as their far left.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
And if Carney's not careful, he will have the NDP have a resurgence. And then if there's
Yes.
election, Pierre's going to clean up if he can keep that coalition together. Now, there's
Yeah.
also a risk to Pierre that Carney could eat into his coalition by being so right wing that it started eating the conservatives. And then it doesn't give Pierre a lot of room because basically like Carney's implementing a lot of stuff Pierre would probably do. Pierre would do it differently. So yeah, I think there is risk to Pierre and
Yeah,
the conservative
absolutely.
government that Carney could go so far right and sort of allow the NDP to resurge a little bit, but the calculation could be that it's going to take a while for the NDP to rebuild. They don't really have a strong leader, and so they could eat into Pierre's coalition and be okay. So
Yeah.
we'll
There's
see.
also oh sorry, no, you finish.
Okay, good.
I was gonna say there's also a chance that like if the NDP resurges in a particular way, they because a good chunk of the conservative coalition right now is
Right,
NDPers. So if they pull back a chunk of those voters
right.
to the from the conservatives to the NDP, the like even if the liberals go down a bit, it could be like uh null by the end of the day because it would still they would have pulled equally from both the liberals and the conservatives at the same time. So there's
Yeah,
all these coalitions that all the party leaders are going to have to keep an eye on to make sure that they don't lose them.
that's the game that's played. Also, the
Yeah.
last thing on Carney, and then we can move on, is
Yes.
I just think it's funny how much he loves foreign media. Like he will
Oh
do
yeah.
a sit down with any foreign media whenever he can. Like he sat down with CNN, he's doing all this European media. And it's an interesting tactic. Like I think Canadians seem to like it because it's like, oh, look at this guy, and he sounds smart on all these, big fancy news stations. So I think it seems to work well for him for whatever reason. So a good tactic for him.
Yeah. He's got more political chops than I think people, and including myself, thought he would have.
Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
it's just yeah, the real big question is if he continues down this sort of right-wing path,
Hmm.
will that keep the coalition will the coalition stay together despite that? Or will the NDP capitalize on it? So
Yeah.
that's the big question.
Well, the big thing is he can keep people in line with prime ministers and premiers do this all the time. You keep people in line by offering or taking away cabinet roles or whatever.
Yes.
That's why
Yeah.
Nate's speaking out because he's mad because he's not in cabinet. But if you
Yeah.
want to shut him up, put him in cabinet, and then he gets a big pay increase and all his responsibility. And woo, I'm a cabinet minister. I'm honorable now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one way to do it. But when you kick them out, yeah, there's always a risk that they go rogue on you, which is what's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, I mean, it might still not work because Chrystia Freeland still backstabbed Trudeau
You're right.
despite her portfolio. Although I guess he was going to take it away from her, but anyway,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not foolproof. Play number two, the Alberta Next panel, Danielle Smith and by-elections. So let's talk about
Mm.
that. Derek, as always, you're a resident Western expert, so I'll let you give the first take.
There were three by-elections. They kind of went. The only one that was interesting was the rural Alberta one, and it was because there's a new party in Alberta called the Republican Party, led by a guy named Cam Davies, that used to be with the UCP and did a lot of work. The UCP is kind of an organizer, door knocking kind of guy. So he started this separatist movement and party and was thinking this could be just like something that happened in the 90s where the PC government was getting too, to center of the road and there could be a surprise by-election win for a separatist party. Well, no, he got crushed. He actually got less votes than the NDP in a rural Alberta riding. It took about 13 points off of the UCP there,
Yeah.
but nothing too significant. So I think a lot of people reacted and was like, this is sort of a green light for the Premier Smith government that the coalition is holding, despite there still being concerns about things. Also, if
Yeah.
Carney is able to make some economic progress and stop beating down Alberta like Trudeau did, then the separatist sentiment could go down. But I think it's still pretty high. And so that was a big one. Nenshi won his seat in Edmonton Strathcona, which is Rachel Notley's old seat, and there was another Edmonton one that was expected to win by the NDP, and they won. They lost some of their vote share, but that was sort of the like it doesn't feel like much has changed. Premier Smith is still very popular in Alberta, and the coalition is holding, but this coalition still needs some for the libertarians that are there, for the
Yes.
more right-wing conservative types that hate the federal government, that hate Ottawa. They need something, and I would be
Yeah.
among that group where I'm constantly frustrated at the federal government and their treatment of
Yeah.
the West. And I
Hey,
think
same.
they, yeah, and I think they, even Easterners, a lot of them are speaking up and saying, "Stop being so mean to Alberta. We kind of need them for our economy. Like it's the only province that's actually generating like them.
Yeah.
Alberta and Saskatchewan are the only ones that have strong economies right now, and they're propping up the economics of the country.
Oh, way
So
outperforming their like, but per capita by their own like by their population size, way outperforming
yeah,
places like
yeah,
Quebec and Ontario.
for sure. And the only reason why you don't hear as much about Saskatchewan is because they just don't have the population, but they're doing quite well economically. And
Oh
so
yeah.
a lot of people are like, why don't we just like unleash these provinces and do, help them succeed, which is what Carney, I think, wants to do. So I think that'll tamper down the separatism. But I think the calculation here for Premier Smith is so to explain the Alberta Next panel, it's kind of like the Fair Deal panel that Premier Kenney did, where it's going around the province discussing all these ideas. So it's provincial police force, pension plan, immigration reform, equalization and transfer reforms, and other things as well, and get everyone's ideas. Trevor Toom, who we've talked about, is on the panel. A bunch of MLAs, a bunch of constitutional experts and lawyers and Indigenous people. It's a pretty good representative panel of interests in Alberta. And so they're going to go around, they're going to get ideas. The big difference here that people are forgetting about, they're like, this will do nothing. This is like the Fair Deal panel. It's like uh, the Fair Deal panel didn't have a referendum attached to it. So the
Yeah.
goal here is the panel will recommend things to be put forward in a referendum in 2026.
Yeah.
So that will be very interesting to see what happens there. That's never been done before in the province. So I think this
Yeah.
will
At least not
generate
this way, not like this.
not like this. And so there's something tangible to it that, for people that like the police force or the pension plan. Again, the police force is an easier sell. The pension plan is a hard sell because there's just so many worries and fears about it. I think they can be overcome. I think it's actually like I like the pension plan idea.
Yeah.
If you can get
Quebec does it.
the devil's in, yeah, Quebec does it. The devil's in the details, and so you have to make sure you get a good payment from Ottawa for your portion of it. But Albertans way over contribute to the pension plan. Like it's not even close to the
Yeah.
CPP, and so that's a big risk for the country because all their premiums are going to go up if Alberta pulls out. And so it's a good leverage point for the province to get some sort of concessions. Um,
Oh,
so
absolutely.
so yeah, very interesting. It's about because the UCP is you have your libertarians and your separatists and your kind of blue Tories, your um, people that like the traditional values, and then you have sort of some of your red Tories too.
Yeah,
And
the old PC types. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of those too. And so you have to make sure that coalition stays together. And so far it's holding. Um,
Yep.
but this is a calculated risk for the premier. People are sort of wondering why Scott Moe's not doing something similar. And it's because he doesn't have the same separatist sentiment in Saskatchewan. He has some,
Yeah.
but it's not as intense and not the same numbers. I'd love to see some polling on that to see what it's actually like.
I actually, yeah, I'd be very curious to see that.
Because it's still like the roughly the same percentage of people that want to leave, but in Saskatchewan, the separatist folks are just not as organized. There was a
Yeah.
party called Sask United that was a threat to the Sask party for a while.
Oh
They
yeah.
got they got crushed in the last election, so they're kind of done for now at least. But it's still, it's a threat for Mo's leadership and the SAS party there as well. But it seems like
Yeah.
again, this is a right. We talked about Carney's more left wing coalition trying to stick together. This
Yeah.
is a right wing coalition trying to stay together, and you have to
Yes.
make sure you're talking to all these interests. So it's like Smith has been leading really strongly on healthcare and reforming things there, and a lot of people like that. Some people don't, but most people seem to like the idea of reform. And then you have all this sort of fight back against Ottawa stuff. She's really strong in the economy. She really knows her stuff. Like she's
Yes.
been,
Yeah.
talking about this stuff for a long time. She knows, and I think she's building good relationships with other premiers. And like you saw, Alberta and Saskatchewan have a joint caucus meeting the other day,
I saw that. That was cool. Yeah.
which was kind of wild. So Lloydminster, if anyone knows Lloydminster, I think it's maybe
Lloydminster.
yeah, it's I think it's where my wife is from, so that's kind of funny.
Oh,
But
neat.
it's the only border town I think in Canada. But it's like Saskatchewan and Alberta are like smack in the middle of that city, and it's not that big of a city. It's like 20,000 odd people, something like that. But it's kind of cool when you go there and it's like now I'm in Alberta, now I'm in Saskatchewan, Alberta, Saskatchewan. It's like the Simpsons thing, and then he gets punched at the end. I'm in
Yeah.
America. I'm in Australia. America, Australia. Um, for all those Simpsons references. So that's my view of it. How does the Ontario perspective see this Alberta Next stuff there, Greg?
Yeah, it seems like it's a good pressure release valve that like, and it's not just for show. Like this is actually like it feels like Premier Smith genuinely wants to do these things, like or not necessarily to do these things, but to hear people's advice. Because her biggest strength, I would say, is her ability to listen and then take that into account
Yeah.
for her own legislative agenda.
Mhm.
She's not just doing what she wants to do; she genuinely wants to hear what the people want to do and then do it.
Yeah.
So if the fair deal or not fair deal, if the Alberta Next panel wants, an Alberta police force, which I think would be a great idea. Like we have here in Ontario, we have our own the OPP. I figure every province should have their own police force. Maybe not the territories for obvious reasons, but everybody should have, their own thing.
Hmm.
And then, pension plan, I think it's a great piece of leverage to use against Ottawa. If they're going to be stupid and put you guys in a position where you have to keep your resources in the ground, the only thing like helping us make money right now, like then yeah, you should absolutely use every piece of leverage you have to get at least wake them up, like make them realize like this is a real we're a real deal here. We're
Hmm.
not just playing around. So good for Premier Smith. I'll be very interested to see where it goes. Other than that, I don't have any deeper insights on it as an Ontarian because it
Right.
won't directly affect me. It will
No.
indirectly affect me as time goes on, depending on the results. But I mean,
Yeah.
I would not like my pension premiums to go up on my paycheck,
Hmm.
but if it helps in the long term, fair enough.
Yeah. We'll see how far it goes. Like I think the separatist movement in Alberta would explode if Premier Smith wasn't there, in my opinion. If you
Yeah,
had Rachel Notley or Naheed, not Naheed, Nenshi as the government there, or even like, when Alison Redford was the premier there, it's like people would be very upset. But Smith is like, she's believable in all this stuff because she's been talking about police forces and,
yeah.
provincial pension plans for many, many years. Like, I think she genuinely wants to do something there and will push hard. But it really is not about separatism. She can't go there, and I don't think she wants to go there. Nor does the government, and it would be foolish for her to do that to keep the coalition together. Like, why? It's like it's too small of like you'd lose government, and so then you have no power. What's the point? So
Well,
again,
she's
this is
also
where
got. Oh, sorry, you finished. Sorry.
I was gonna say this is where I get frustrated with right wing conservatives, where they're like, "Why isn't she a full time separatist?" And it's like, why would she be? Like, you would lose the coalition, you lose government, the NDP would be in, and then what are you going to get?
Yeah,
Nothing.
yeah.
So where's the like? There's but like there's so many people in Alberta that is like, if she's not a separatist, I hate her. And I'm like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So there is some illogical things that happen in right wing, like in right wing politics in Alberta, where like I'm a movement guy, is what you would call me. So I like,
Same, yeah.
yeah, I like seeing conservatives win. You know, we talk about our biases here. It's like I like seeing conservatives win. That makes conservatives lose. That sort of thinking and
Yeah.
strategy, because you could just you destroy a coalition. You need more than your far right people to get elected. This is like, if
Yeah.
it's proportional representation as a system, then maybe we could do that, but it's not. It's first past
I
the
don't think it
post.
would work then either. It wouldn't
It
work then
probably wouldn't even
either.
work then. You're right. So that's the Alberta update. Oh, Alberta politics is always interesting. There's always something going on,
Yeah.
and this is
They
this
are
is the
big, they're a
latest.
big player. It's
They're
inter like
yeah.
I when I talk to a lot of people about like in my circle here in Ontario when they ask me about politics, Alberta comes up a lot. Between, Ontario, obviously, being in Ontario, that's what comes up number one. But
Mhm.
Alberta's usually always number two when they ask me, like, what's going on over there, I will say, and I don't mean this as a knock against Premier Smith, it's just simply like history. She has direct experience with coalitions falling apart. When
Oh,
she
yes, yeah.
crossed the floor, like that blew that whole coalition up, and that's how you got the
Hmm.
NDP in the first place. So she knows exactly like what not to do, or at least part of
Hmm.
what not to do to ensure that your coalition stays together. So, and
That's a
that's,
very good point.
and again, I don't mean it as a knock against her. It's history. She's very open about it herself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
she's got that direct experience.
It was the like at like she talks about this openly. She's like, it was a mistake to do it the way they did it, blah blah blah. It was like the right move at the wrong time with the wrong personalities kind of deal. And it just didn't work out because Prentice was who he was. Jim Prentice was the premier at the time, and just who the personalities were. And then like Premier Smith didn't win her nomination, and there's like it just wasn't the calculation wasn't right. But again, I think she's learned a lot from those experiences, and
Yeah.
that's what you want out of a leader, like someone. It was actually funny. So something came up on my YouTube of like Rick Mercer and Premier Smith when she had a
Oh, really?
caucus. Yeah, it was a date. They went on a date at West Edmonton Mall together, Rick Mercer and
Oh my
Danielle Smith.
gosh.
And so look it up if you haven't seen it. It's really funny. But she just was Wild Rose leader. They just started this party, and I think
Yeah.
they had 3 or 4 caucus members at the time. And so it's, pretty funny that her political story was that, and the floor crossing and everything, and almost winning government at one point as a Wild Rose leader. And then
Yeah.
now she's leading this right of center coalition and seemingly learned a lot and is doing pretty well. So I know it's so funny because like some people are like, don't talk about Danielle Smith because she's, divisive across the country. I'm on the record of being a pro Danielle Smith person. So I can't I'm not going to take it back. I think she's doing a good job for Alberta. And until, if she bombs for some reason, then I guess. But it's like so far so good, in my opinion.
Well, that the polling data we looked at last episode suggests she is doing well. Well,
Yeah.
honestly, what I find more interesting than her ability to keep her coalition together is the NDP, and particularly Naheed Nenshi's complete inability to, in the middle of like pro-separatist sentiment, keep any kind of left-wing coalition together. Like
Mhm.
he couldn't find the sky if he looked up. Like this guy, it's brutal. He's got, and not that I want them to win. It's just like, my gosh, how bad of a politician are you that you are unable to even capitalize a little bit? Again, it's good
Mhm.
for the conservatives. I'm happy. I'm
Yep.
very happy that Naheed Nenshi's not doing well or doing better. But just from a purely political perspective, it's fascinating to see this guy falling downward on this issue.
He has a hard time because he was an individual before, and he could do like when he was mayor of Calgary, it was like it was the purple brand,
Yeah,
and I could be whoever I wanted to be to whoever. Now he's sort of stuck being a quasi
orange.
socialist and trying to build a coalition. So and I don't think he's ever really done that in the right, like in a political party sense before. So I think he's, we'll see if he can adapt and learn and figure it out and how to like, but he just hasn't articulated a good vision, and he looks really
No,
grumpy all the time, like really
it's rough.
negative and nasty constantly. And I'm like, he was like sort of smiley and jovial as Calgary mayor. Not at the end, but like for the first few years for sure.
Oh
But
yeah.
now he's just like, he looks like he hates everyone and everything unless he's talking. And then he looks like I did that last time
Yeah.
where
Yeah, he's
I
got
showed him.
perfect talking face, terrible resting face.
Yeah, it's like his body language is really bad. Like I think he's not having a good time, is my thought. So so we'll see what happens
Yep,
there.
we'll see what happens. And then our third play, the Middle East, which I guess is a kind of coalition, the world consensus on the Middle East. What's going on out there? Derek, do you want to take the first stab?
No, I can't. Take Derek, just take a stab at the Middle East
Take,
politics and what's
yeah,
going on.
give us the Coles notes on the Middle East here.
Yeah, that's easy. All I'm gonna say is talking about Canada's posturing with this one,
Yes,
and
that's what we're going to talk about.
also
Yeah.
the F bomb that Trump dropped after bombs were dropped.
Yeah, the
So
final bomb dropped in the Middle
yeah,
East was an
so
F1, yeah.
I'll give the basics, and I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to go into this. But basically, Israel's obviously having this conflict right now and is in a war. But then they decided to bomb Iran and their nuclear facilities because they're getting too close to the justification was they're getting too close to having the A bomb essentially, right? And the U.S. seemed to kind of agree based on the intelligence, and so they bombed Iran to negate some of that development, but also as a bit of a way to stop the war, to create a ceasefire opportunity because Iran can't compete against the U.S. military. It just can't. And so America's like, hey, we're gonna bomb you, which is it's pretty crazy that the U.S. is bombing them, to be honest.
Yeah,
So
well,
and
because Trump ran on a pro-peace ticket, there would be no
yeah,
more Middle East wars. Now, does this count as a Middle East war? Like, there's a bit of
probably I
like,
don't
there's
know.
a few, yeah, there's the nothing ever happens meme,
Hmm.
which says like that, things do happen, but it's really nothing. Nothing ever really happens, or at least nothing's happened since like World War II.
Yeah,
Where it was like, is this really a war? Kind of, not really. Like, it's not troops on the ground, but it's bombing. Another one piece of context for the listeners. Iran is like a state funder of terrorism. Like they were
yeah,
the ones
big time.
giving money to Hamas in Gaza and the well primarily Gaza, which is what Israel has gone into now. And it
Yeah,
was Hamas that started it with the October 7th incident or tragedy, whatever terrible thing. And so then Israel's like just wants to get rid of Iran because they're the ones sponsoring Hezbollah and all these other people. And the US kind of has some interest in that and keeping the people want the Middle East to be stable for oil prices and trade shipping routes and yada yada yada. So Trump's found himself to quickly speak about that coalition. Trump's coalition is very interesting because he's got hardcore like pro-war right wingers. But he's also got hardcore like new right, which is kind of isolationist, which doesn't want to do any interventionism. And so it's gonna like, is this actually gonna affect his coalition here, or do people just love do the voters there and the like Republicans just love Trump enough where they'll forget about it and whatever because nothing really happened uh for America that they're gonna keep going. But it'll be interesting to see from there
hmm
what happens. But yeah, I mean Canada's response to this is kind of what we want, more of what we want to talk about because a lot of the
hmm
international community has been very strong in condemning Iran and not necessarily pushing for regime change, but definitely condemning the Ayatollahs and the Iranian regime as it is today. Whereas Canada was kind of we've been very lukewarm on it.
Yeah. Well, I will say, because I didn't realize this, but this, because when we were researching this, I was looking at all the media Carney's been on. He did say the U.S. bombing of Iran was proportionate, it was de-escalatory. He says, and now there's an opening for diplomacy. So he's kind of taken the U.S.'s side here, a little bit. So this is the first, but again, he's in America saying this. He hasn't really said this in Canada. But obviously
Yeah.
this gets to us Canadians. So he really is like his response is to be very pro-Trump because he needs this trade deal. So that
Yes.
there's a lot going on there. So I thought that was interesting. And the other part that I thought was interesting was how America is basically deporting pro-Hamas folks. And
Yes.
that
And
that
pro
is
Ayatollah Iranians. Yeah.
yeah, and so people are asking, hey, like these people are, radicalized in our nations. Should Canada do it? It doesn't, I haven't heard anything about that from the Canadian side yet. We will. I don't know, but it's tensions are certainly escalating. Like these protests that you see obviously the LA riots and things, but even in Canada on the Palestinian front, like they're very intense, and Jewish people are very under threat and have to like hire private security guards for their kids to go to school and different things. Like
It's
it's pretty
nuts.
wild that some of the stuff is happening in Canada, to be honest. So this is going to keep escalating, and we'll see how Carney can respond. Because yeah, the Liberals have been kind of weak on this file for the most part, I would say. And it's because honestly, they have a lot of pro-Palestinian people in their coalition. Again, speaking of
Yeah.
coalition building, and so they don't want to piss them off.
Yeah. Yeah, they still don't like they have in some of the key ridings in places like Montreal, Toronto, there are key Jewish populations that they want to hold on to. But unfortunately for those Jewish populations, they are drastically outnumbered by
Mhm.
Muslim populations. Now, not all Muslims are fans of Hamas or are necessarily that
For
invested in the
sure.
Palestinian issue, but there are enough where we see them protesting in the streets. They try and force the hand of the federal government, the liberal federal government.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a bit of the coalition there that Carney has to keep together, where he can basically afford to kind of ignore the Jewish voters in favor
It's a
of
small,
maybe, yeah, because they're so
small
small,
population.
which is
Yeah.
which is sad. It's sort of a sad reality that you as a voting coalition can be ignored because you're not big enough. Um,
That's how it
yeah, so
works. That's
we'll,
the
we'll
game,
yeah. And I,
unfortunately.
I don't imagine it changing anytime soon either. Like, unlike some of these other things we were talking about, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like, I don't foresee this coalition part of Carney's coalition changing at all.
Mhm.
Whereas I think the conservatives have done a better job. Like, well, they obviously have done a better job the other way in terms of moral clarity on the issue. But I also think they've done a good job in terms of keeping the coalition together, where they're not like anti-Muslim or something like that. But because there are Muslims and other people from the Middle East in the conservative big tent, but they've been very morally clear on the issue. And we did see in the
Mhm.
last election a huge chunk of Jewish voters switch from liberal to conservative. Like the conservatives had a good run at places like Mount Royal in Montreal, which are
Mhm.
very, very, downtown middle of Montreal ridings, and they had a good shot at winning it, which would have been unheard of even in the last election.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the last thing I'll say about this is the Muslim vote is unique in Canada. Obviously, it's growing.
Yes.
And so there's sort of like the pro-Palestinian Muslims, but there's also the traditional conservative values side
Yes,
uh,
yeah, which is not talked
of
about.
Islam as well. And you actually saw a very non-traditional type of coalition. This was maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago when it was talking about, parental rights, and you saw
Yes.
Muslims and Christians coming together to protest. And I'm like, well, that's very different from the pro-Palestinian protests and the
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
anti-Semitism that you see. So it's like you should not really, paint all these folks with a single brush. It is unique for sure. And it also depends on where different Muslims have come from. Like they're not all from the Palestinian region.
Oh yeah.
They could be from lots of different areas, and so they'll come with sort of different mindsets on things. And so yeah, it's a unique, diverse cultural thing. Like even this is what when we buy ethnic media as well. So we do a
Yeah.
lot of that in the media buying space. It's like there's so many different dialects to worry about. They and
Yes.
different like sects, and they all sort of interact differently and see the world differently. And they like this group of 1,000 will like this issue, and this other group of 4,000 won't like it. And it's like really hard to understand them. And so I think that'll consolidate over time, but for now, since we just had massive immigration, right, where you're bringing in a million
Yeah.
plus immigrants a year, it's like it really changes the political culture and the coalitions that need to be built. And I don't think it's that well understood by political parties yet. It'll get
No.
there, but it's still pretty new, I think.
Well, and the government's frankly, especially over the last 10 years, the liberal government has done a terrible job of assimilating a lot of these people to be
Hmm.
like, look, when you come here, you can absolutely retain the best parts of your culture. We want you to do that, but you need to learn to give up your sort of internecine tribal warfare that went on in your home country. We don't
Hmm.
have that here. You need to give that up when you come here. And it's interesting. It's something that conservatives were talking about for decades and were called all
Yeah.
kinds of names for. But now is sort of the Overton window has shifted such that it's become a sort of open point of discussion, even to the point where Mr. Carney has kind of touched on it. Like he's mentioned at least like we need to slow down on the immigration, we need to cut back on this, that, and the other thing.
Hmm.
Um, so I suppose we'll see where he goes from there. But
Arnold,
I'm not betting anything yet.
no, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I thought actually had a good opinion on this because he's an
Yeah,
immigrant to America, so it's not American perspective. But he's like, hey, when you come here, you're a guest of this country.
you
You,
need to do the voice if you're gonna do this
oh,
there.
you are a guest of this country. I haven't taken it's not very good.
You've got to become an American if you're gonna come here.
Yeah, there you go. That's way better. So I thought that was a good perspective. It's like you don't come here and try to take over the country. You're here as a guest and you should
Yeah,
adapt to some of their cultural norms. Like obviously still maintain your traditions and your religion
sure.
and that sort of thing. But it's like some of the conflicts that you came in, it's like, no, it's like if we love peace and we love liberty and different things here, it's like that should be honored because you were welcome to the country. And so I like that.
Yeah,
From a Canadian perspective, it's like, yeah, we don't want to have someone come in and drastically change who we are. It's like, again, this is maybe the traditional conservative values thing in me, but it's like the right of law and freedom and liberty and respect and peace and all those things is like it's kind of Canadian, and we should sort of stick to that.
yeah. Yeah, I think like because we used to do a good job of this. Like I think pretty well. Like my parents were my mom on my mom's side were immigrants. My wife's not her parents, but grandparents were immigrants from
Hmm.
Holland. Like a lot of those people, they came here and they retained the best parts of their cultures, like food, music, dance, clothes, and even their language. But they
Hmm.
adopted themselves into Canadian law and culture and heritage as well,
Yep. Yeah,
because
you can do both.
that's how it used to, you were able to do both, and they gave up, not that there was, I mean, not that there was too much per se, but my grandparents, at least on my mom's side, moved here to get away from Protestant versus Catholic internecine tribal warfare going on in Scotland. They wanted to come to Canada to be able to get away from all that.
Yep.
They didn't want to have to continue, the Knights of Columbus versus the Orange Lodge, which
Yeah.
kind of does still occur here, or did anyway, but not nearly in the same way that it did over there. It was very much like respectful and peaceful here
Right.
compared to how it was at home. So if they
Right.
can do it, then these we should be able to enculturate our new immigrants to do the same thing.
Can we do stick taps?
Yeah, let's do stick taps. I want to just stick tap our. I know it's almost like self-aggrandizing, but I want to stick tap the entire MASH team because we've had a ton of projects over the last like 2 weeks to a month, and it was daunting in a good way, but we crushed
In
it.
a
We
good
got
way.
it all done.
Yeah, I think all the stuff that we can't talk about, that we that we did, all turned out really well, as far as I can tell, and clients seem really happy. And at the end of the day, it's like we're all about service to our clients and going above and beyond for them and taking their stuff really seriously and doing the top notch job that we can do. And we have a great talented team that can do it. That's what I'm so
Yeah,
thankful of. So yeah, shout out to the MASH team. All you folks are awesome, and we say lots of praises to you internally. But we're like, hey, on the pod, let's give them a shout out. The great mashers that do so much, and we fight for this country. Really, we do. And it's
yeah,
where we like working with good people that are doing good things in business or nonprofit or democratically, and we want to push for the issues and take them really seriously, and we do. And so we fight, we work hard, we take it seriously. It's we have a marketing side of our business too, and we have some great leaders there. And I say like, you're responsible for the health and well-being of keeping all these businesses alive. Like you really are, because we do the
yeah,
lead generation and the marketing for them. We are the spear of what they do. Marketing and communications is the spear of your business, spear of your political movement, spear of your nonprofit. If your messaging is bad, if your communications are bad, you will lose in the
yeah,
marketplace or in the political arena. And so I just feel like really thankful and blessed that we have this opportunity to have such an influence over all these great leaders across the country and into the states as well, that we can help them be the spear for what they want to do and help them leave a legacy, which is our
yeah.
slogan as a company. So we have a great team that's doing that, because it's growing too big, where it's like it used to just be me and a couple others, and now we got like 20 people doing stuff. So it's fun to see it grow and just being able to help more people.
Yeah, it's fun to work for. So if you want to be added to that list of people getting great work done for them, you can give us a shout.
For sure.
All right. And then do you was that our only stick? I think that was our only stick tap.
No, we can do Damien.
Sinden.
Yeah,
Or oh no,
Damien.
yeah, Damien Kirk. I forgot about Damien Kirk. Yeah. So Damien Kirk, CPC MP. There was just actually to set the record straight, because a lot of people said, "How come the by-election hasn't been called yet?" Grr. And I understand you thought that was going to happen. Let's give some like just a quick political lesson here. You have to be sitting for 30 days as an MP before you can officially resign your seat. So even though Damien had announced a month and a half ago that he was going to, he had to actually
Right.
be sitting. The House Speaker of the House had to be elected, and then the 30 days could occur. And we've gone past that, so he's officially announced his resignation. He's going to inform the chief electoral officer, who will then begin the process of informing the prime minister. And then from there, Prime Minister Carney had said, quote unquote, no games. So he said he
Yep.
would have the by-election called as soon as possible. So we could expect Pierre, if he wins his seat, to have that sometime like end of August, so that heading into the fall session, he'll be the leader of the official opposition again. Because in order to be the official leader of the opposition, you have to actually have a seat in the House. You can still be the leader of a party, but in order to be specifically the OLO, you have to have a seat. So he'll be then that will be in time for the next session. So and for Damien, like he is in fact it is actually a big deal. Like he's giving up his MP pay. He doesn't qualify for a pension yet. So unless he goes back to become an MP again, he wouldn't get that pension. And it means, he all that work that he did for that election is
It's
now, I don't
gone.
want to say wasted, but it's gone.
But kind of,
So
yeah.
it's a big deal. Like,
It's a big sacrifice.
it's a big sacrifice for him. So anyway, shout out to him for doing that.
Yeah. And
Um,
I knew him in
and
Saskatchewan, eh? Like we worked Saskatchewan government. He worked in the
oh, no
caucus
way.
there. And really, really nice guy, really good family man, and just good guy character. So, I'm sure he'll land on his feet and he'll get an opportunity until it sounds like the plan is to go back into the seat after Pierre kind of finds, one closer to
Yeah.
Ottawa at some point. So, but that's good clarity for people because I actually didn't know some of that either. So thanks for that great education, Craig. It's good stuff. And
That's
and
what
go,
we
Damien.
we aim to we aim to educate here.
This sin bin's a good one. Stupid Florida Panthers. Uh,
Uh,
I I
dirty
can't
rats.
wait until they have their downfall because the last time they won the cup, they obviously celebrated and they did their tours and whatever. This time it was like they know that they own the league. Like they owned every single team they played against. Like none of the only team that was actually close were the Leafs, and even they weren't that close. They got totally wrecked in Game 5 and Game 7 by them.
Yeah.
Oddly lost a game in Game 6 at home where I thought they would probably close out the Leafs, but it was very Leafy to take it to Game 7 and then get destroyed in
And
Game
then
7
lose.
and
Yeah.
lay an egg. But like Edmonton, who was an incredible team and had so much momentum going into that series,
Oh, I know.
Panthers
Oh.
really beat the snot out of them, and they know it too. And they're like, we're gonna keep this together, and like they've just been partying for like an entire week, not sleeping, and running up these like crazy bills everywhere. So it's like good for them for partying, but it kind of a lot of people are like it kind of went too far where it's like you basically think you're the hottest thing on earth and you will fall at some point. It won't be probably next year or the year after, but there's seasons to all this. People used to be a crappy startup franchise and you were terrible for like a long time. And I get it. You're at the top now. People love the idea of playing in Florida, no state tax, all that good stuff. But their time will fall. And a lot of people are really waiting for it now, which is dangerous. It's kind of, I think it's why the Leafs don't do well a lot of times because people hate them so much because they have such a big fan base
It's
that
easy. It's easy for other people to hate on them. Yeah.
it's really easy for teams also to get up to play against them. So,
Yeah.
because even the Jets said, is there anything better than beating the Leafs? That was one of the famous quotes from a Jets player. I can't remember which one. And now, but that actually gave the Leafs momentum when they play the Jets. And now they've been owning the Jets because they keep bringing that up. So it's kind of like Michael
Yeah.
Jordan. It's like, give him a reason to hate you and he'll just like destroy you on the court. It's like I think everyone's gonna have it out for the Panthers next year because they just sort of went too over the top and being like, we're the greatest ever, no one can ever touch us ever kind of mentality. What's your thought on the Panthers and they're so great?
Oh, it was just painful. Like I just like it's extra painful because how many Panthers fans are there? Like 40? Like I remember watching their like big celebration last year after the win, and they were hosting it in some like auditorium or something like that, and there was like 40 people there because no one cared.
Mhm.
Like the only people that go to watch Panthers games are Leafs fans who snowbird in Florida. Like that's who's watching your Panthers games. Like it's painful. Like oh,
That's
and
a
yeah, another
can
another
can we
year of
recognize your
Canadian.
bias? we have to recognize your bias here because
I
they
recognize
had
my
full
bias.
barns, but I will say this, so it's kind of hilarious. Like they only have 40 fans, but they had these like giant parades. But I will say if they were bad, no one would show up to the games, or like it would be like
Oh
40%
yeah.
capacity. But they're so good, it's hard not to show up. But like even during the season, they didn't have full barns all the time. Where Canadian teams like Calgary has been like mid forever, it seems, and like even at the end of the year when they're
Shots
out of the
fired.
playoffs. Yeah, they well, it's true. They were still filling up barns.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sort of like, wow, I can't believe so many people are here when it's a pretty mid team not making the playoffs. Well, okay, you can call them mid. They actually only had, what was it, 3 or 4 points less than the Panthers in the regular
Yeah.
season, but they didn't make the playoffs, which happened kind of the year before too. So maybe they're not that bad. But everyone knows they don't have superstars. I hope they can get Jason Robertson. That's the one thing
Yeah.
I kind of want to see a trade between Dallas and Calgary. So Rasmus
Oh,
Anderson's apparently on the trade block. And then I love
okay.
Jason Robertson in Calgary. He'd be really good. They need a goal scorer.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm
I
curious to
just
see
called you
what
out.
Toronto will do. I have my I'm not embarrassed.
I called out your bias big time there, Greg. Take that. You can call my pro Leaf bias is very clear.
Oh
A lot
yeah.
of people are saying Brad Marchand's coming to the Leafs, which would be like I would I get his jersey? Could I make that adjustment mentally from like hating him to liking him all of a sudden?
I could. If they
You
did it with
could.
Sam Bennett, absolutely not, but I could do it with Marchand.
Yeah. Yeah. Sam Bennett just concussed too many of our goalies, I guess, is the problem.
Yeah, like Brad Marchand's like a dirty rat. Like he licks you when you like and like does weird says weird things to you. Like Sam Bennett's an act like will beat you to death to win a game. Like
Yes.
he's an
Yeah.
actual like bad person.
He is a yeah, he's a villain. He's a villain. Marchand's like a hilarious villain though, where he's kind of like lovable
Yes.
in how like mean he is.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
he's really funny. Like
Yeah.
he did this thing where he was on Instagram stories and he took a picture of the player, like Matthew Tkachuk, for example, and said, "Thanks, NHL Flames." And he did the same thing with Sam Bennett. Thanks, NHL Flames, for the MVP. And then he took a picture of himself. Thanks, Boston Bruins. And
Yeah.
it was like ECHL teams were catching strays. And what a lot of people said is there was former Toronto Maple Leaf players that could have got called out on it, but Toronto, for some reason, in this whole Instagram tirade of Brad Marchand, did not catch any strays. So people are like, well, he
Ooh.
must be trying to warm up to old tree living
Yeah.
in Toronto and not criticize his next team because Toronto will probably overpay for him, and then we'll have Marchand at the end of his career be good
It
for
would
maybe
just be yeah,
one.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
It would be wild watching Marchand playing for the Leafs playing against Montreal. That would
Oh,
be
yeah.
a wild dynamic.
Oh, and Spit and Chicklets had Sam Reinhard, Matthew Kachuk, and Brad Marchand on their podcast,
Oh,
and
really? I missed
they were
that.
literally on their phones in a hot tub, drunk, on a podcast. And I'm like, so it's like as much as I hate them in Sin Bin, they're kind of awesome. Like they're great hockey. They're one of the best hockey teams that I've ever seen play. Like they were so deep and so good,
They're so
and
good.
they're
Bobrovsky is just insanely good.
yeah. He's actually the one guy I respect the most. One, because he said after he won, he's like, hey, just he did like the shout out to God for it. And she's like, hey, I'm just like doing
Yeah.
my part and I leave the rest up to God, well, whatever. And people are like, hey, he's probably gonna skate the next day. Like he wins the cup and then he's like, he apparently he like didn't party. He's just like going back to working on his game. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
he should probably party a little bit. Like, come on,
A
Bob.
little
Like
bit. Yeah.
you should you don't
Yeah.
have to go like Matthew Kachuk partying, but like go, go have some fun. But he's like, nope, I'm just gonna like stay disciplined and thank God and get back to work here and do some skates. It's
Good
hilarious.
for him. Good for
So
him.
you kind of have to love Bob, especially because he was sort of this like highly touted goalie for a long time, and then he had like I don't know if it was like 3, 4, 5 like pretty bad years where it's like we're gonna buy him out and he's a bum and whatever, and
Yeah.
now he's just like a complete stud again. So I kind of like it for him. Is the only guy.
Yeah, no, good for him.
So,
Good
but
for him.
it's just hard to like the Panthers because they're so arrogant now.
Yeah, I know. I hate them. I hate them
And
as
they have every
an
right to be.
entity.
Okay, I'll stop my tirade.
All right. That's it for a show, everybody. Thank you for coming. As always, like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, your family, anyone who needs that. And the people who come to you in your life are like, what's going on with XYZ policy or politics thing? You send them to us, Friggin' Good Politics, and
That's
we'll
right.
explain it all for them.
For sure. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Canada Day long weekend. Go Canada, go.
Yes. Happy Dominion Day. Cheers.
Happy Dominion Day.